Welcome to Flair UK. My name is Rob Stevens, and today we're doing Legends in Bartending. And today we have the amazing, legendary Nick Mander. Yeah, cool. Yay! So, a little information I've got on you. I understand you won the UK's in 1992. You won the Tandem in 1992 with Jason Rattle, and you worked the Haymarket store.
I did.
And I had a question here: are you a master bartender? But with the blue cap, I think that gives it away. So, joined in what year did you join Fridays?
I joined February the 8th, 1990, and I'd been working for Whitbread Hotels previously, running a cocktail bar, and there was an American waitress in there who said to me, "Have you heard about TGIs?" I said, "Never heard of it." This was around 88, 89, around 89. And I said, "No, what's that?" She told me about it. She said, "They're opening one in Coventry." I said, "Right, okay, I'll go down and see what it's all about." I'd got a book behind the bar in the hotel that was written by the UK Bartenders Guild. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Fabulous book. I used it as an absolute Bible. It talked about all the classic drinks, all the classic drinks manufactured. And as I had quiet shifts in the hotel, I used to read it covered. And I entered cocktail competitions while I was at this hotel. So she obviously saw that I was doing this and thought, maybe you need to go to Fridays. So I went down the road to Fridays, Coventry. The store was a brand new store. It was number 6 in the UK. There was obviously Birmingham in the Midlands being the first one, but Coventry due to open. And I got taken on as opening team for that site. And I wasn't put in as head bartender. I was put in as one of the team, and the guy that took head bar was a guy called Snoopy from Reading. He transferred for a new store, and the guy that did my training, and I sent a post through to you last night on LinkedIn or on Facebook. The guy that did my training was a guy called Jimmy Skidas. Now, you may or may not know, you may know, but Jimmy, his full name, James Michael Patrick Skidas, was the new store opener and trainer, the international trainer. And Coventry was one of the last stores they brought an international team over, because once Whitbread had got to, I think it was eight stores, they had an internal training team to do the openings. So Jimmy had flown over, and Jimmy's business partner was Magic Mike.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right? So Jimmy was the bar trainer for us in Coventry. Jimmy wasn't a great Flair bartender by any means, but his interpretation of Flair was not throwing glasses around, throwing bottles around. His interpretation of Flair was what you brought to the job, what you brought to the role. And as such, he was an incredibly funny, very entertaining, very musical chap who could do an element of Flair, but it wasn't his strong point. But he would lie on the bar and play guitar to anyone that would listen to him sing, and he was a very good singer. So from that sort of perspective of entertainment, the entertainment piece that went around it, he absolutely nailed it. So we obviously got really excited about the Flair thing. That was the thing that really attracted us, as clearly that's what it was all about. And he said, Flair in my book is whenever you're doing anything, do something slightly unusual. And that is Flair. And we coined this phrase at the time of monkey flair. And I banned monkey flair. And monkey flair was basically somebody standing behind the bar, chucking a bottle around for no reason, then getting to the end of the routine and pouring a measure out.
Yeah.
And the routine having no relationship to actually the activity they were doing. So it took a little while for Coventry to get off the ground. And after 6 months, I took head bartender there. My memory skills and recipe skills were a lot better than the others, and I learnt it through a lot faster. 120 cocktails were nailed in 3 weeks, and then I started working my way through the book then. I think I still have some of the original books, actually. I have one of those.
Wow.
We have one of those.
Oh, I haven't seen that one before.
That is...
Is that one before the other one, or is that after that one?
That's American.
Okay.
That one was introduced when they brought out the ultimate cocktail ranges.
Yeah, that looks like quite classic, like what I remember. But that looks retro.
This was 1990. I think it was one of the first ones issued.
Wow. Is that a UK one?
Yeah.
What's on the front again? Show me the front. Oh, okay. Was it just blue, red, and white on the front?
Yeah. We've
Yeah.
also got
You wouldn't guess that was a Fridays menu.
that one.
That's cool. Is that the working recipe one? Gotcha. That is cool. That is good. Talk me through the stuff on your back wall again.
So the picture behind me,
Yep.
with the yellow border, this was presented to me at the World Championships in Dallas at Greenville Avenue. Really, really old store. It was one of the ones that sat very close to the corporate offices. So when the World Champs came back round and restarted in '92, that was the location for it. And after competing, they presented that to all the competitors, and it's signed on the back.
And you came third in that, I do understand. Third in the world. That's really, really amazing.
Yeah.
Did you at the time? Did you thought you might have won, or do you had no regrets? You thought third was good enough?
I thought that because England had won it the previous year with Mark Elphick,
yeah,
and the Americans didn't like being beaten in their own backyard,
okay,
the chance of an English win 2 years on the trot was probably minimal. The routine was fantastic though. So I did what was because I'd entered the '91 competition in the UK as well. I was a finalist in the '91 at Mill Hill.
So you knew Mark Elphick quite well. So did you work the same store or separate stores?
No, he was he Kingston or Reading? He was no, it wasn't Reading.
Oh no, I think he is actually. I've got my book here. So what was he? Mark Elphick was Kingston. He was Kingston.
Good memory.
Yeah, so
yeah, I knew Mark. So yeah, I was there in the '91 competition, and when I did the '91 competition, I said to myself, when I didn't, I was a finalist, but I didn't win. I said to myself that I was winning the following year, and that was the end of it. So there was no holds barred in what I needed to do in order to win. So I made an absolute mission all the way through to win the European. I forgot about the World Champs, to be honest. I was focused so hard on winning the Europeans that was my goal at the time. The European was classed as the UK one. That's how they termed it. The routine that ended up at the World Champs included a fairly elaborate glass stacked routine where I used to stack, make a base layer of Collins, and then do a thin 3 stack with shooter glasses, the Flair shooter glasses.
Cool.
And then put a 2 stack on the top of the shooter glasses, which made it look like it was leaning.
Yeah.
And then I'd do a routine behind the bar with a pair of split tins and pour down the side of each tin.
Nice.
And then I'd stand up on the bar and dispense the drink into the 2 glasses at the top. And the final piece was to take the top glass off and throw it back down to ground and catch it behind my back. Okay. So that was my showcase piece at the World Champs.
Did it work?
Yeah, it came off. Came off.
Nothing worse when it doesn't work. That's the
I know, yeah.
Did you have any occasions when it didn't work before? Did you have did you work on the UKs?
I didn't do that in the UKs, actually, I don't think. I did the high stack on that. I think I was intent on making sure the technicalities, and it's slightly different to the stuff that you've probably looked at over recent times.
Yeah.
Because the competition, the setup for the scoring of the competition was geared completely differently. There's an awful lot of it now that's geared purely on Flair expertise, whereas in those days it was geared around, there was a massive percentage of points that were allocated to the technicality side of things. So if your recipe expertise wasn't good enough, you weren't going to get through. Yeah. Which is why, when Steve, if you talk to Steve and Jules, one of the things we concentrated on was getting through the masters and learning 685 recipes. That's what you needed to learn. Yeah. And if you didn't know those, you could get picked up and you'd miss something. And when you got into your routines, that was the top-up points that added to it. So it was. So
let me take you down memory lane. Okay, so you joined 1990. Yeah. Number one film at the time was Ghost.
Yeah.
Remember this. Number one also was Home Alone was out.
Yeah.
And of course, obviously, the number one song was Unchained Melody from Ghost as well. You're very similar to obviously Steve Dingley, who was on only last week, and so it was quite interesting to obviously hear what he had to say, and obviously I'm playing around with you. So you so obviously you started at was it Coventry first store?
Coventry first store.
So then where did you go from there?
So I then transferred to Haymarket for the opening bar, for new store opening.
Okay.
The GM selected 10 number ones and 2 number twos to host the bar there, and chose me to head bartend. So
Brilliant.
I went from head bartender in Coventry with Jason, who was my number 2,
Yep.
down to Haymarket. And we, this will frighten some of the people watching now, we found a flat in London to live in, a house, a terraced property to live in,
Yeah.
which was, I think it was £400 a month each. 3 of us lived in it. It was in the middle of Mayfair.
Wow.
It was a 10-minute walk up Piccadilly to get to Leicester Square. And we thought the streets were paved with gold and we'd made it.
Yeah. So
And
who did you share your flat with?
I shared with Jason and with a guy called Barney Billen, who was a waiter, Dub. And then latterly with a guy called Lee Napier, who was also on the bar. He came up from, was he Reading? Oh, it might be Reading. Yeah.
So the picture you sent me with everyone outside Haymarket,
Yeah.
was that just staff alone?
Yeah,
That's awesome. That's, I mean, when everyone that looks at, because obviously we posted it on Facebook and obviously you shared it, and when you see the number of staff that's just standing outside, it's just like, it's breathtaking, absolutely breathtaking. So did you go back to Haymarket before obviously it closed down?
Yeah, the thing you've got to remember about the Haymarket opening, it was Fridays at that point was peaking all over the country. The general public had never seen anything like it. You've got these guys behind the bar doing all the tricks and magic and cocktail juggling and all the cocktail stuff that was around. And as Haymarket opened, it was just at it couldn't have had a more premium location, right opposite Planet Hollywood. So you think the store opened with the highest number and the highest caliber staff count they ever put together, far exceeding anything ever before. So the training, if there was anything really, for this new store opening was mainly us playing games in the Trocadero Centre, because the guy that came over for the bar was a guy called John Diamond.
Yeah.
He validated my master bars during the opening, actually. I remember the service bar test particularly well, actually, because it was quite a frightener. We did the master bar pour test, and he then said the service bar assessment would take place. I think it was a Friday night, and he put a stool in the corner of the service bar. And as usual, the Dubs had this game where they saw that one of the top 3 on the service bar, the day shift would hold off, and they would wait for the night team to come on. The night team would then flood the floor and just sell like hell. So service bar got absolutely slammed, and my ticket printer started going. And after 5 minutes, John stood up with his clipboard, and I looked at him and I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm going to give you a hand." I went, "Sit down." Well, yeah. And he went, "Right, okay." So we sat down. We counted the tickets afterwards. There was 158 drinks in 23 minutes.
Wow, that is crazy.
The service bar had got 3 mixer tins, 3 Boston glasses, 3 blenders, and then obviously the bill stack behind it. And that's what hit my printer at the time. Now, Steve may remember this as well, but in order to run, as going in as head bartender, the rule was that you couldn't run the service bar on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday premium shift unless you were top 3. Yeah. Because the pace and the speed of it was just frightening.
So what? So on that note, because obviously, like a lot of people, apart from obviously, I know I'm following you all the way. So I'm just going to try to recap people that are listening. So what makes a top 1, 2, 3 bartender at Fridays?
Well, you got assessed on your timekeeping, your uniform standards, your knowledge, the way you interacted with the management. You needed to want to host and run the bar as well. They looked at sales and sales volume, because everything was commission paid in those days. So the monetary side of things was pretty hefty. And you needed to show the aptitude in order to want to be the guy in charge. So,
like, I mean, another thing as well. I mean, I did my masters in '98, and it took me about 3 years to go through everything to get there. Yeah. When I spoke to Steve in that, I mean, you guys are doing your masters within a couple of years, and that's like, You must have started like, this is what I want to do from day one. You must have just not stopped studying from the minute you walked through the door, saying, "This is my goal. I want to be a master bartender." Was there always master bartenders when you joined, or was there?
No, it didn't. No, it didn't exist, and that was the funny thing. You say, now people would look at it and they'd say, "This is what I want to do." In those days, people were just starting to get to learn what the company was doing. So Coventry was store number 6, Haymarket was store 11, 12, something like that. So people were just starting to get to grips with the terminology and as a bartender of the day, I'd go around and tour all the other bars and venues in the area that had anything that did anything similar to Fridays, and there weren't many really that were doing it. And we'd go and look at everything they were doing, pinch ideas, steal ideas, all that sort of stuff. So when the comments about master bartenders came up, yes, we were studying it, but at the time when Haymarket opened, you put 10 number 1 guys on the bar together and 2 number 2s, all at the highest of their game.
Yeah.
When there was no customers coming through the door, which was rare for Haymarket, to be honest.
Yeah.
When it was quiet, we'd stand there and we'd fire cocktail questions at each other. Steve and I used to stand, on point and 5 and call off drinks. And if you got a slight element of the drink wrong, from the recipe to the glass to the manufacturer, anything, everyone just ripped the hell out of you. It was brutal.
I remember we used to have in like Lakeside years ago, we used to have a Rolodex with all the drinks. And under Long Island, it'd be like, if you don't know this drink, you shouldn't be on the bar.
Yeah.
It's like one of them ones. Okay, it's a little bit of a joke, but it's so like one of them ones where you just go, the competition must have been fierce as well. I mean, you've got everyone, you don't get that kind of passion unless you want to win stuff. So if you've got 10 bartenders that all want to win, there must have been some kind of, was there any like friction between you all, or was it okay? I mean, it must have been some kind of friction, because everyone wants to win and you'll do anything to do that. I mean, was there any kind of stories like that?
It was very competitive. There was a huge amount of drinking going on, after the shift, but everyone was very good friends. Cool. And there was it kind of got into a natural rhythm quite quickly, where the top 3, top 6 were defined, and then the bottom 6 were defined. And at the time the site opened, Coventry at the time used to take 35k a week in total. Do you understand the commission structure and all that?
Yeah.
So Haymarket opened at about 65, 68k. And within 12 months, it was approaching the world sales record, and it peaked at 183, I think it was.
Wow.
I was actually working the inside window when it did that, because I was in the kitchen at that point. Yeah, that was quite brutal.
Did you venture? Was that to do with your bartending, or was it just something you wanted to learn?
No, well, so let me go through the sequence for you, because that will explain it. Yeah. But I'll come back to your point about the competition on the bar first. Cool. The team was so tight when they came together. You'd got 12 people that loved the company, cut them in half, they were red and white. Yeah. They couldn't think of anything they'd rather do, and it was the best place to make a stupid amount of money and have a great time at the same time. And as the sales grew, that happened. It wasn't instant, it took time, but there's something like 80 million people a year walk down that street at that time. Mm-hmm. And Planet Hollywood, that was directly opposite us, was doing 250, 300,000 a week in sales volume. So the traffic flow was huge. So there was competition from the guys in their skill, if you like. There weren't any major rows or disruptions within the team, because everyone kind of understood the scoop. They'd all come from places where they ran the bar, so they knew what it entailed. Some wanted to step up to the plate and do the top 3, and some didn't. Mm-hmm. So that was quite, it worked well, to be honest. And after the 92 competition, that put me at the forefront of a lot of the promotional stuff and TV work and advertising stuff that Nick Kamara and Mandela had done before.
Yeah. And did you do much TV then?
Yeah, I did quite a bit. Yeah.
What did you do? What did you do?
I did a stint on Motormouth, which was a kids' TV show.
Okay.
I did a breakfast television show, Sunrise, I think it was called, and I got a stint at a fashion show in Birmingham.
Brilliant.
I've got a photo, but I'm not going to show it because there's a picture of two girls in lingerie standing either side of us doing a tandem routine. But I'll keep that one.
Was that Jason Rattle, was it?
No, that was Dominic Dunning.
Okay, somebody
that did that with. And then there was we got asked to do a show in Belgium, which was a copy of a show used to be called 321, the Dusty Bin Show. Do you remember that? Yeah. So basically, you get an activity of some description, and then the rhyme, and the contestants have to guess what the prize is.
Yeah.
So we got invited to go over first Eurorail over, or first flight over from Luton, I think it was, something stupid like that, 6 a.m. I know, it was pretty horrible, especially after a night shift. We had all day rehearsing in the studios before it went to a full dress rehearsal, then a full live.
Yeah.
And it was me and Dominic Dunning again. I think we did the tandem routine there for some reason. And essentially, we worked this routine to present a West Indies yellowbird, and obviously had a rhyme, and obviously the prize was then a trip holiday. Well, we were standing in our positions ready to go, and the camera guys had rehearsed us several times through, and they said, when you see the red light ping on that camera, that's your cue. Yeah, okay, right. So we're standing behind the bar and chat, and waving at the crowd, and the audience is all in. There's 800 people there watching, and the camera swung around and filmed on us, and we're still chatting until the floor manager had come over and he's gone, "You're on!" Oh, right, okay. And off it went, which was just hilarious. And the PR team at the time gave us a bit of stick for it, but it worked out well, and everyone enjoyed it.
It's so good though. I mean, like that they are willing to invest in, because you always hear these things that bartenders are rock stars, and then you hear stories where you go, I went off to do this TV program here and this TV program there, and it's one of the jobs where most people just go like, so why do you want to become a really, really good bartender? And I think that's the reason. I mean, because you get opportunities, and the opportunities are what you make of it, and so it becomes more for this. I love my job, and obviously you can hear it in your voice on how much passion that you had for it. And so going to work, I mean, when I spoke to Steve, he was trying to explain to me, which I was trying to understand, where bartending was, and it still is today, like a part-time gig.
Yep.
And then when he started, then it became more of a profession. But when he first started, it was just a job. It was something to pay the bills and everything else. When did it kick in? Did it kick in straight away that you knew this was going to be a profession more than just a part-time gig?
I was cocktail bartending at the hotel, and I enjoyed that. That was good fun, and that was chump change money. I got to Fridays and it changed. All of a sudden, you started to see the fun, the glory, and the money that you could have from it. My parents said, "When are you going to get a proper job?" And when they came down to the first final in '91 to Mill Hill, and they heard me come out to Tina Turner's song and do my routine.
What was the song?
It was Simply the Best.
Yeah. Really? Oh, okay, classic, cool.
It got used in the promos afterwards. They featured us and used it as a recruitment video following that.
Awesome.
When they saw that, my dad came up to me and he said, "I didn't know how good you were."
Oh.
And he'd seen me in the back garden with a mattress on the garden, chucking bottles around. There were none of these plastic Flair bottles. It was a bottle taped up with gaffer tape, right?
Yeah.
With a tin and a bottle, chucking it over my head until my arms hurt, trying to get the catch right and the position right and the balance right and all that sort of stuff constantly. He'd seen that going on, but he hadn't really appreciated it in full swing. And then, of course, he came down and he saw the razzmatazz and everything going on, and the store was packed. There wasn't an inch in there. And then, of course, the following year, he came down to Haymarket and saw the final there, and it was transformational. It was just amazing.
How did you deal with did you get nervous in the competitions, or did you have a routine to get rid of your nerves, or would you just doing nerves?
Well, the '92 one was really interesting because I was last up.
Okay.
And I fell asleep.
That's cute.
Yeah. I'd waited so long I'd been pour testing myself just to kind of take my mind off things, but it had taken so long, because I think there were 12 that were in it, to come to my spot. They came and woke me up. Like, Nick, wake up! It's your turn. And I ran upstairs and got in. But
you think it's a good thing? Would you like relaxed more, or did you wish you had a little bit more time to wake up and get into the mode, or was it? Did you think it did you a favour being that kind of chilled out?
I was. Oh, don't get me wrong. I was in the mode. I'd created a field of vision for myself that was very narrow, and it was looking at that one judge only. And at the time, I hadn't done any promotional stuff, so I wasn't used to big crowds watching. And Haymarket was a big site; it was packed to the rafters, so there was hundreds of people there, cameras all over the place. So it could really offset you if you weren't careful. But I think I'd taken a breath and I knew what I was expecting.
So when you did Haymarket, and that was classed as the European stroke UK final, yeah?
Yeah.
So was it all UK people competing, or was there different countries? Just all UK?
It was all UK at the time.
Who was was there someone that was really, really close, you had to beat? Who was your main competitor at the time?
Well, Nick Kamara always says that he couldn't believe that he only managed third. And Nick's always been a great friend of mine, and obviously he worked Covent Garden, and that had always been viewed as the premium site. And then I came down, there's another Nick, very similar last name, and we're talking about all the same stuff, but he's worked the Covent Garden site that's been the premium baby for all this time, and all of a sudden the Haymarket boys are down and started to really make some jump on him. So I viewed him as a serious competitor. Jules obviously was up there as a serious guy, and Jeff Meston. Lee Miller and Steve Locke and those guys lived in our house at some point that year, while they were waiting for a place to come up on the bar, because you just couldn't get in there. When positions were filled, you had to kind of queue up to get in.
So, like you mentioned, and obviously the name, because I've been in touch with Lee over the last few weeks, and so obviously when he joined, were they quite green as grass at the time? You had no idea. So did you take him under your wing, or did they just learn by themselves? I mean, did you have any participation in how great these guys ended up getting?
He'd got a superb ability to him. I think I felt that my technical and my recipe knowledge was far ahead of everyone else. Lee's flair in developing new moves and creating new moves was really exceptional. So we fooled around in the flat, and tried different things and different balances and different tricks and that sort of type of thing. But whether any of that was an influence off me with him, doubtful, or it was his own natural skill set. He was a natural at it, and he was superb. But the passion and engagement of the team at the time talking about it just feathered that constantly. You constantly challenge yourself to try something different. There's a photo that I sent of Steve and I standing outside the front, balancing a bottle on our hand.
Which store was that? Was that Covent Garden?
That was Haymarket.
That is Haymarket, because it looked so similar to Covent Garden. It did.
One of the things that Steve and I used to do, which was always quite funny, was see who could balance the bottle and flip it the most amount of consecutive times. Single flip. Our target was 50. I hit 50. He got to 49 and dropped it. So as Planet Hollywood opened, they had a Flair bartenders working there as well, and we'd go over and watch what they were doing, and we'd try and pinch some of the ideas that they were doing. But everyone was at the point where it was very creative at the time, because you couldn't watch a YouTube video. YouTube didn't exist. It came out in 92, I think. So there was no reference point for you. You had to develop it yourself and fool around, and when something didn't work or did work, try and map your routines out from there.
How far behind was Planet Hollywood when Covent Garden? So obviously Haymarket opened up, should I say? How far was Covent Garden behind? Were they the year after, or about the same time as Haymarket?
No, Covent Garden had been open for many years prior to it. So Covent Garden never had any challenge in London from a central London site. So there was no comparison really from a sales volume to Covent Garden until Haymarket opened. They'd been there since, I think Birmingham was the first store and Covent Garden was second or third, I think, on the listing of openings. And that was Edgbaston opened in 83. So Covent Garden was probably late 80s, and then Haymarket in 92. So there was a deal of time between. They'd been running for a period of time before we got there.
Okay. So so I noticed, obviously I watched the because you wasn't wearing your master's hat when you done
No,
the 92. You was wearing, like, was it like a cowboy hat kind of
it
thing?
was, yeah, yeah.
So obviously, like the Fridays thing used to be, the hat represented your personality, or sort of
Yeah.
like. So how did the hat come about? Why was you wearing this cowboy hat?
Well, it was a gambler's hat, actually. It was a poker hat that I got from Kansas. I got a friend that lived in Kansas. I'd been over to visit. I'd seen this particular hat and I thought that would work great behind the bar. And it had got on the side of it, there was a little pin with a cameraman on it. So
Yeah.
I decided I was going to be memorable, and I'd seen everyone else wearing baseball caps, and I thought I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
I'll do something that's memorable, and I'd got this. Yeah, it was a great hat. I went looking for it actually. I thought I'd still got it, but it's gone. Bit of a shame.
So, like, when you did your masters, like Steve told me, it was quite a big deal. Well, it is a big deal doing masters anyway, but it was a big deal meaning people. Did they come over from America to
Yeah,
grade you as well? Tell me more about that.
yeah. So the guy that came over was this guy was John Diamond, and he was one of the only approved guys that could come and do it because there wasn't anyone qualified in the UK at the time. Now I'd heard about it when I was in Coventry, so we would set up. The pour test was always something that scared people. We set up 5-6 glasses, double road, and do all the combination pours to try and learn all of that and work our way around it. We lived and breathed the exacta pour system. And there's an interesting fact for you. In 91, the government was looking at Fridays. They were talking to Whitbread about the accuracy of free pour,
Yeah.
and the free pour technique. And they arranged for customs and excise and weights and measures to attend. And they went hunting around the country for people to demonstrate free pour technique. So myself and Nick Mandela were selected, and they came around and gave everyone a pour test, in front of all of the directors and everything else. And we went down to Mill Hill and we practiced all day, waiting for these guys to turn up. They came in the afternoon, and one of the area managers at the time came over to us and he said, "No pressure, boys." He said, "But if you get this wrong, you're doing it in court." Right. Okay. Thanks for that.
No pressure.
No pressure. So we did it down the long side of the bar, and there was a whole upstairs seating bit. There was all of the weights and measures guys there. There was all the customs and excise guys there. And they were debating this fact about what a cocktail is. And obviously, as we now know, it's 3 liquid ingredients, and ice counts as a liquid ingredient. At the day, they were arguing whether ice counted as a liquid ingredient. So they said, well, the measure that's always listed on the wall is your 1 ounce or 25 ml or 35 ml, whatever you're declaring. So that's the only one you need to show us. And the director said, "Don't worry, these boys will show you everything." So we did left-hand pours, we did right-hand pours, we did all measures across the thing, we did tin pours, we did bounce pours, the lot, and nailed all but one.
Wow.
And from that point on, they said, "We won't, providing you have a directive that the guys will free pour every day before they come into work, and if they fail the test, they get sent home. You can carry on."
Yeah, because there is a bit of a flashback as well, because I think around about, was it 90, well, I joined in 96, and around about 97, 98, we had the, like the 3 liquid thing, ice being 1 liquid. And there was like random, we used to get like once a year, you used to get some random person come in and just randomly go, "Right, I need to see your pour testing," like this. And it was really, obviously when you mentioned it, it just came back to me, and I was like, it doesn't happen now because obviously that we have to use the measures, the jiggers, and obviously we just use the jiggers on anything where it's like liquid, a spirit and a mix. We'd use a jigger straight away. So, but it was a good thing to remember that, because actually all of a sudden I forgot all about that. That's why that's why we talk. It's good.
I remember it at the time because I used to work pubs, when I was at university. And of course, pubs used optics. And the optics were dispensing in 1/6 of a gill measures, which would be about 30 ml, I guess. Now, when you use an optic and you put a glass underneath it and take a measure off it, you always drop the glass down and then double tap the optic, and you'll get 2 more drips that come out of it. The accuracy of free pour, when you can get that black line perfectly meniscused on the black line within a 1/16 of an ounce, I think is the level of accuracy on it, which is less than 1 drip from an optic. So the fact they ever came to challenge us in what we were doing was hilarious, really, because most optics, if they're not cleaned and the corks are rubbish, or they're not maintained properly, are less accurate than actually free pouring. It's all stuff that came out as they started talking to us about how, you know, the method of free pouring and everything else. And of course, that's what people wanted to see.
How long was you with Fridays for? Was it just the 3 years, or?
Oh no. So joined in 90, opened Coventry, went down to Haymarket, opened Haymarket in 92, ran the competition in 93. Okay. For the UK with Tim Sturck, fabulous guy. And then in 94, I went into the kitchen and I worked all stations in the kitchen and learned the entire kitchen with Lyndon Cole, who was the guy in the kitchen in those days. He validated me on window on the busiest day of the year, which is hilarious.
But I know, like, why you actually on the kitchen? Because let's be honest, I mean, most Fridays, they work on a 70-30, which is 70% food, 30% drink.
Yeah.
The food back then, because obviously, you know, we've moved forward. A lot of food's different now. Do you remember much of the food back then? What was like, what would you class as a wow back then in food dining? What was actually, do you remember what was on the menu?
I remember the menu very well. I think the biggest mistake Friday's made over the last 10 years is taking out some of the items that used to be on that original menu and replacing it with some of the garbage they got now, because and I wouldn't eat there now.
Yeah, cool. Well, so what was on the actual menu that obviously you would go back to if they brought it back into the menu?
If you looked at the starter range, there was a good variety across the starters. There was obviously a decent fry station, so the colossal onions that were done, the broccoli cheese melts, they're not on there anymore, I don't think.
No.
So steamed broccoli, coated in liquid cheese, battered and deep fried, just amazing, served with piquant sauce. Potato skins were obviously on, the combos were on with the mozzarella planks. But if you looked at the main courses, there was a really good variety through the main courses. If you think of salads, in those days you would get a Cajun fried chicken salad in a big, huge bowl with a honey mustard dressing, just amazing. They did a char grilled chicken salad, which was a 12-inch tortilla, dropped into the fryer, filled with a combination of rice and buttermilk dressing, and then topped with fajita veg and fanned avocados. It was beautiful, and it was big enough for 2. They obviously did the Cobb salads, the steaks and the burgers, pretty much, but there was nothing of the JD sauces that came in and just seemed to take over the entirety of the menu and flavour everything, and I thought that was a disaster. Okay. So, but of course, same as the bar, validating in the kitchen, you had to learn every single recipe through all of the kitchen. So the way the pot stickers were made, and everything was made by hand, don't forget. We used to make all of the sauces, we used to make all of the soups, we used to make all the marinaras, we used to make the salsas, the guacs. I've still got the guac recipe and I use it today. It's in my head. You know, chicken Dijon was one of the best dishes that, you know, it was a beautiful dish. And then the pasta dishes as well. So,
awesome, so, but yeah, so what did you find your strengths and your weaknesses behind the bar? What was your, you know, did you like service bar? Did you like front bar? Was you a good pour tester? I mean, what was your things you did really well and the things that you think you could have probably worked out a little bit more on?
Well, I was champion in 92, so I was great at everything, obviously.
Of course you was, yeah, of course I was. It's a good answer, but I'm sure there was some weakness. I'm sure there was a weakness.
Well, there was a huge competition at the time to see who could get the sales record. So I held the sales record in the service bar at 3,300, and that stood for quite some time. It got broken on a New Year's Eve, 2 years after I left, I think. I got the point record at 1,700. That came and went a little bit, and that beat Covent Garden. Covent Garden got a 1,500, I think. They did a promotion to the City Boys at one point and hit a £2,000 front point station. Bearing in mind, £2,000 might not sound much today, but the beers were only 195, and the cocktails were 365. So
I know Haymarket didn't do draft. Did Covent Garden do draft at any stage, or it was just spot beers?
They'd got the pump, but they never used it. It was filled with water. No one ever sold the draft beer. It was garbage. Never drank it. But, no, let me go back to the strengths and weaknesses. I thought I was always really proud of my service bar because I was from a technical point of view, that's what service bar was all about. My flair was good. My working flair was excellent. I wasn't the most creative. Lee's an example of someone who was a very creative flair bartender. I got some good moves, but they were really crisp. They were really sharp. They were really fast. My glass throw was superb. The balance off the bar from a vertical lift off the bar up and over the shoulder. We put lots of magic in and did lots of other bits and pieces as well. So I taught myself to juggle and things like that, all of which was good. But then I'll do a bit of timeline for you as well. So I left in 96. So I'd done 6 years in total, 2 years in the kitchen, 4 years in the bar. Haymarket was then at peak sales volume. And I had a couple of years, I worked at Planet Hollywood and Chili's and a few of the other brands. I spent a deal of time going in and out of the States. And then I took a job running a Fridays Abroad, which is that.
That looks amazing. Is that on the water?
It's not. It's actually in Lebanon. It's in Beirut. It's on the cliff edge, on the green line of the city, between the Christian-Muslim border where all the fighting and wars went on. And I was the GM of that site. And I hosted, this was in 98, I hosted the North African European final in that site with reps from Turkey, Dubai, Russia. There's a couple from Europe. I think I had 8 contestants there that came to see me, and they got me over to run the site and said, if you're here, we were thinking of running the competition and hosting it. What do you think? And I said, bring it on.
Yeah.
So even though I'd been out of the company for a couple of years, when they hired me, they said, do you remember your specs and everything else to run the site as a GM? And I remembered everything because it was the kind of stuff you did. And I said, you bring the teams there and it'll be the best competition you'll ever see. And they had an absolute riot. Apart from the guy from Russia who got so incredibly drunk on the local booze he couldn't stand up, but that's a different story.
Did you have because obviously where it was, did you have days off where there was wars or things like that?
Yeah, we worked a 6-day week, but at the time it was a pretty busy, active military zone. So you've got Syria and Israel that flank it. And one year the Israelis flew in and bombed the hell out of the city and blew everything up. So that kind of
Fridays was all right though.
Fridays was okay. It stayed. It was one of the only sites that had got a full valet parking service, because you can see from here, it sits on a cliff edge. There's no parking for it. The patio there would seat 250 people. It was amazing. And the views out over the Mediterranean. Now, the coastline that goes around in this direction, you can see the airport at the far end. So when they dropped bombs on the airport and that went up in flames, we saw it through the windows because all the windows were sea facing. So we saw them light it up. It was something else. Right.
Well, I'm going to actually do a quick fire round questions. So there's no wrong answer. They're all right. It's just getting to know a little bit more about you. All I'll go with multiple choice questions. So favourite pour, 1 ounce or 2 ounce?
1 1/4.
1 1/4. Okay, yeah. Favourite Flair move, classic behind the back, like glass behind the back, or flip a drink?
Behind the back, and I still use it.
Still use it today. Potato skins or wings?
Wings, every day.
Every day, cool. Service bar or front bar?
Depends on the day. You need a qualifier for that.
So, okay.
Front bar on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
Service bar on a Sunday morning.
Nice. Cocktail the movie or Coyote Ugly?
Well, the Cocktail movie was the footprint, wasn't it? And we reckon that with Jimmy Skilas being Mike's business partner, he'd also contributed to some of the training piece for that. Wow. So there was a bit of an affinity there for me with that. And I met Magic Mike and Jimmy a few years later. I worked for Hard Rock Cafe and I went out to a conference in Orlando, and Magic Mike was there and Jimmy was there, so that was just hilarious to meet those guys again.
That is good. Spice Girls or Backstreet Boys?
Spice Girls, because I made cocktails for them.
Brilliant. Did you really?
Yeah, at a launch party.
Go on, tell me more.
I was working for Planet Hollywood actually, and they'd part of the promotional stuff when the competition went on was we got positioned out to do all sorts of openings and all sorts of bits and pieces. We got sent to do an opening for a designer's gallery. Ministry of Sound ran the music, and they bought Absolute Vodka at the time was launching into the city, and they signed up some bartenders, which are the premium bartenders from a whole raft of sites. I was number 6 on the Absolute Bartenders sign up. And they took us to the Paul Smith Gallery to do the opening for it. We made sea breezes for everybody, 4 bottles at a time, like this, down a 12-foot table. But when I went to Planet Hollywood, they took over the Battersea Power Station to do a film launch, and the Spice Girls came in. They sat in the VIP area, so I hosted the Spice Girls and made cocktails for them. Well, why wouldn't you?
Great story. Great story. Favorite skill: Flair, magic, or other?
Flair.
Flair.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
It took a long time to learn and get it right.
Cool. Favorite cocktail: Long Island or Raspberry Watkins?
Cool. No, actually, I've got a couple of favorite drinks, but for different reasons.
Okay, go on.
So I think my favorite drink from a purist point of view is a rocks margarita.
Okay.
Because if the pour is not 100% accurate on it, the flavor profile changes completely. I'm talking to the converted. So you can go to, 3 ingredients in a margarita. How wrong can it go? Well, you must have tried. I've tried them all over the world, and I've challenged. I was in Egypt one year with my wife, and we went into this bar, and the bloke's making a margarita, and I said to him, and this is about 8 years ago, so I'd retired many years before that.
Yeah.
I said to the bloke, if I can make a better margarita than you, the tab's on you. And he went, all right then. So she looked at me and shook her head. I went behind the bar, did some of this, made the cocktail, and I nailed the flavour. But, well, he made me pay anyway, but there we go. It was good fun. So margaritas from a purist, Bloody Marys, just because it is an exceptional drink when it's made correctly. And then from a frozen drinks perspective, there's only one frozen drink that I think far exceeds anything else, and that's because of the skill that's required to make it, and that's a Mexican runner.
Nice.
Yeah. The longest ingredient list in the book.
Yeah.
Hardest to make accurately on a perfect pour. A beautiful drink when it's made correctly with such a balance of flavour. And not many people remember the recipe, but I've still got it. So
exactly, still got it. So how's Party Round yours? For a busy bar or a steady bar?
Depends if you want cash or a bit of fun.
That is true. That is true. That is good. Yes.
We had a manager at a Haymarket called Odu Bambusi, fabulous guy, and he had a habit of standing on the raised section on a Saturday night watching the bar work.
Okay.
I was shift leader, I remember that, and he was standing at the top watching the bar in operation. The bar was absolutely packed. Everyone was on form. The atmosphere was great. And I saw him standing and watching, and I looked at the crowd, took the bass off the blender to use it as a megaphone, like you would.
Yeah, as you do.
As I said to the crowd, I said, and I'd like to introduce you to our manager for the evening, which is Odu Bambusi. Everyone turned around and waved at him, and they went, "Hey!" like this. And I said, and if you cheer loud enough, he'll come down onto the bar and he'll make a drink with me. So of course they all went mad. He didn't know any of it really. So the other guys realised that it was going to be a massive piss take. And it got all the way through it, and the lemon went over the shoulder. And then I said at the end, and throw it over your shoulder. So of course he went to do that, and it went everywhere. And he got a massive round of applause, and off he went.
That's sad. Did you have any it sort of died off a little bit. There was lots of pranks that bartenders played on each other. Was there one that you can remember that was like, or a routine prank that you did on each other?
There was a couple of routines that used to be about. Now, we used to do, Steve and I, it was Steve, Jeff, me, and Jules, I think, would do a Long Island iced tea routine. So one on each corner. and everyone would mirror the moves as it went round, with the final move being obviously a throw. So that was a good one. But we would.
That's a nice, simple but effective thing to do on a bar. Especially like, when you got 4. I mean, it was very well when I first started. Like, you kept to your stations. Like, you weren't allowed to cross over. So if you was on side 3, side 4, side 5, you stayed on that station. Was there like was it really strict back then? I mean, was it like, if you come on my station, I'll beat you up, kind of thing? Is it that kind of?
You got the ice cream scoop in your pocket job. That's what you got.
Okay.
Yeah, because you wouldn't notice it until it started to melt, and then it went straight down the inside of your trouser leg.
Yeah, I remember the miniature bottle. I remember the miniature like tonic bottle. They used to like take the top off, stick it in your pocket, and as soon as you put it out, it makes it even worse. So you just have to go. But then
we used to wait. So if someone was playing up on the shift and wasn't pulling their weight, we used to wait till they go off for a break, and then we'd cling film the lids of the tins and put them face down. So they'd throw the tin off the bar and do everything, pour the liquor in it, and it would just bounce off. So they'd have that a few times. We
Did you do many hours there? Like, did you work like round the clock?
So the year that the year following the competition, '93, when I organised it, I was hosting the organisation of the whole competition, and I was running an NSO at Enfield, and then I was working back at Haymarket in between. So I was doing about a 90-hour week, 90-hour week. It was pretty brutal.
There must be some serious, but you were earning some serious money then as well, weren't you? So
yeah.
So, I mean, you wouldn't do anything else. So so who's the best bartender you've ever seen, and why? And don't say I looked in the mirror this morning.
Yeah, it depends what day I wake up on. Well, when it's quite a difficult one to answer that, because when I won the competition, Jules and I joined our prizes together, and my prize was a trip anywhere in the world that was a Fridays. We put the trip together and decided we were going to do something a little bit more than one place. So we did a 5-city stop. We went to New York, Dallas, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Honolulu, and trotted around all the bars, got asked to judge some competitions, and just had some unrepeatably good times that got us in a lot of trouble. So we saw a lot of really great bartenders. The interesting thing, though, was the European guys were head and shoulders above the US guys at the time. So I watch some of the videos now, and I watch some of the Far Eastern guys and some of the Flair routines the Far Eastern guys do, and they're spectacular. But I can only go back to the guys that I knew at the time, and Lee was superb. He was just legendary in those days. And I think his creativity, and I think that's a bit that probably is difficult for people to really understand today. In that, if you'd got no reference point, and you saw someone throw a glass behind their back, you would say that was the most amazing thing. Once you've seen that, right, that's been done. What's next? How do I improve it? You see a glass stack, you see a 2 stack, and then a 3, and then a 5, and then a 6, then an 8. Everyone starts pushing it further and further. But I think the pleasure comes when you see someone that is so finely honed in their skill that they don't break between they don't break their move or their movements in their service. It's not stilted, it's just autopilot on everything they do. And that's when it really clicks, and you're watching mastery at work. And what I don't like is when I see these guys that stop in the middle of their service and go into a monkey flare routine that's got no relevance to it, and then it sort of breaks the sequence up. So
no, it's good. I mean, so what do you think makes a good bartender then?
First things first, and it was interesting when I got to arrange the judging, and they arranged the '93. The amount of people that just don't know their recipe is unforgivable. You can't call yourself a decent bartender unless you know your stuff. So the technical is more than anything. And I realised in '92, if I didn't know every single recipe that was ever going to get asked of me, how could I possibly claim to be, a master bartender? So you've got to get that right. The exact to pour testing was like an absolute religion for us in those days.
Yeah.
It was several times a shift. It was morning and night. It was done repeatedly. If there were quiet days, we'd test each other with those combination pours, the half ounce and ounce doubles, over 6 glasses to really try and confuse yourselves, ounce and a quarters, try and do those wine pours and shot pours. Those sorts of things were essential. The flair has got to be the bit that adds to the delivery of the drink, doesn't take over the entire delivery of the drink. So I think what makes a great one is someone that just gets that blend right. And then the jokes and the comedy and everything else that comes out that you can get away with because you can, standing behind those 3 feet of wood, is spectacular. We got away with some incredible stuff in those days that you'd get arrested for it if you did it today. I remember one particular incident that if you ever track down Lee Napier, Lee was a roommate of mine. He also worked the bar. He was a terrific bartender. He wasn't a great flairer or anything, but he was a naturally very funny guy.
Yeah.
And he and I had a great deal of fun. And I, at the time, had a magic trick that was a little plastic box, and there was a particular technique to open the box.
I've got that one. I've got that trick. Yeah.
The one that opens like that, yeah?
Yeah, the one like that, yeah. Go, that's it.
So I put a bottle top inside this box, and I used to send it around the bar. I could make 50 quid off it, in a heartbeat. Yeah. And I gave it to these 2 girls that were sitting at the end of the bar, and said, if you can get the top out, I'll buy you a drink.
Yeah.
I'm going for a break. I'll be back in 10 minutes. I'll see you when I get back. So I came back, and she'd got the top out, and I'm like, oh, brilliant, well done. And I looked down, and the box was smashed all over the floor.
Smashed all over the floor, yeah. So,
and I looked at Lee, and I said, Lee, what the hell's going on here? And he said, she stamped on it. She got so frustrated, she stamped on it. So at the time, he was studying to be a reserve copper as well. Okay. So I said, well, there's only one thing for it. We've got to arrest her. It's a good idea. So we tied her to the chair. He handcuffed her. We strapped her down, arms and legs down the side of the chair, tied a load of balloons over the chair, carried her out into the street, out the front door, on the chair, one of the high stores, right? Sat her in the street, a street that's packed busy with people walking past, with balloons floating all around her. Put a sign around her neck that said, homeless and hungry, please help, and put a cap in front of her. And of course, everyone just fell about. And then the GM came out and he laughed. We're back behind the bar and it's just stupidly busy. And he, do I tell him to go and get her in?
Yeah.
Or, do I rescue her? Or what do we do here?
Oh.
She didn't stay out there too long, but it was very funny. You couldn't get away with that now, though.
So how much time studying did you do for the competitions?
A lot.
Did you start at the beginning of the year, or did you start just a few more weeks before the competition? I mean, when did you start, preparing for competition?
It never stopped really, because the what the recipe manual's like, it's enormous, and trying to keep on top of all of that. One of the games we used to play would be, and at Haymarket we'd do this. You think of a drink, pick a letter, and think of a drink that you hadn't made for ages, and your game was to try and go and make that drink. Mm. So Negronis at the time, no one ever bought a Negroni. What the hell's a Negroni? They're fashionable again now. Go and sell one of those. So in order to get the recipe knowledge up, that for the competitions, that was just essential. It was ongoing. I wrote all my recipes out on index cards. Cool. I used to read them all the time. I used to read them backwards and forwards and try and memorize everything. And then similar games with the dub-dubs was to get them to sell some of the more awkward drinks so you could really practice them.
Yeah.
The Flair routines, when you got 12 guys that are all bonkers crazy for the job, once we got together and stood in outdoor spaces, all with a load of bottles, it was just game on as to who was going to work something up. So you were always practicing something. The tandem routines were always good fun to do, because you had to do those behind the bar, really.
There wasn't any plastic bottles. It was all glass bottles. So I mean, like, I used to have people come around the house, and you used to have to wear shoes because of broken glass everywhere. So well,
we used to love the Galliano ones. So trying to do it with those now, heavy bottles, But getting those to flip, we use that in the tandem routine. Getting those to flip right and getting the balance on it was really something. Yeah, it took a long time to get that working.
So did you have any injuries or accidents with the bottles?
I was doing a routine with they used to do the Pilsner glasses on the bar for the beer. So when someone ordered a beer, my move was to throw it over my shoulder, catch it, empty it out, spin it.
Is this a pre-chilled glass?
Yes.
Remember back in the
Ice-filled.
day, we used to chill the wines, chill the pilsners with ice, and then obviously you used to just swap the glass. You had a chilled glass. That's what you saw.
So the setup next to the beer font, there'd be 4 glasses, 2 either side, that were filled with ice, and your job was to keep yours fully iced all the time.
Yeah.
So when someone ordered it, you'd throw it over your shoulder, change it out, spin it. And I did that one Saturday night shift, and the glass smashed, and it went through my thumb.
Still got the
scar. It went down to the bone, and I went to hospital, had it stitched up, and went back and bottled the bar up because I was shift leader. And couldn't move my thumb for 6 months. But and then I smashed another glass down the same thumb a little bit further down here, and took another slice out of it.
Was it near a competition time, or was it plenty of time to heal?
That one was, the first one was the first year I got to Fridays in '90. But I was determined to get this Pilsner routine working, and I just took my eye off the ball. By the time I got to the gate to get out the bar, my whole arm was filled with blood.
Wow. What do you miss the most about Fridays, Steve?
Probably comes back to the point that you mentioned a little while ago. People always viewed it as a part-time job. They didn't realise the skill and expertise that went into it. They never realised what it took to run a front bar shift and keep 6 orders running at a time, to consolidate all your drink making, to be able to process orders through the till. We didn't have computerized tills then. You had to enter things with an ID code. So buffalo wings were 105, loaded skins were 112, Mexican skins were 114. I think it was right. Nachos were 113 or 103, something like that. So you had to punch these codes in while you've got all your drinks rounds in your head.
Yeah.
So people really didn't give it the kudos it had got. And I always felt that was a bit frustrating. And, I went into management as a result of it. Not as a result of it, but to further my career.
Yeah.
And at the time I reflected on it was when I came home. I'd obviously grew up in Coventry and moved to London. And I came back to Coventry and went back to a school reunion or something. And I met this chap, he'd got a degree and he'd gone out and done something else. And he said, "Oh, so what are you doing now?" I said, "Oh, I work behind a bar." And he went, "Oh, really?" I said, "Yeah, I work down in London. I've just been sent around the States. I've done 5 different states. I've been on TV 6 times. I've done competitions. I've done this, I've done this, and this." And his mouth just dropped. And he went, "I haven't done anything." I went, "Still time, mate."
Yeah, in your face. So it's confession time. So this is a part of the show where you get to confess something, and I forgive you for it. So is there anything you got to confess to over the years of working at Fridays?
Far too much that I can possibly think of.
The funny thing is, most of the bartenders that only confess at the moment, they confess into being a messy bartender. They're basically saying sorry for being such a mess or being grumpy and all the time. So was there anything that you obviously was not great at? Was you a clean bartender? Was you great with everything? Timekeeping?
Timekeeping was good. I was spotlessly clean. It was probably a bit too goody two shoes, to be fair, at some point.
Okay.
But we had a dreadful habit of on a Wednesday night saying, "Oh, we'll go up to Down Mexico Way," which is a local bar just off Piccadilly, and we'll go and have a drink there. And of course, we'd get in there at 12:30 and drink to an absolute stupor until 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And then, even though we only lived 10 minutes walk down the road, we'd get a cab home. And of course, every night we'd go in and we'd say, "We're not going there tonight." And of course, every night we'd go there and it would be a competition shot drinking game to see who could get the most out of them. And you'd fire all your tips over the bar all in one hit.
So I'd like to obviously mention, because a lot of bars are closed down and over the last year or so.
Yeah.
I'd like to know a bit more about Roadhouse. I mean, did you ever go to the Roadhouse?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, was it? I mean, it's always been iconic since doing competitions, and I think I was at 98. I mean, did you ever consider working another bar apart from Fridays at that time?
Absolutely not. No.
No.
But we used to go into Roadhouse quite a lot. Met Eric Clapton in there actually, just like you do. He'd just written that really sad song. I think he'd lost a member of the family or something. He was in there drinking, and he got up on stage and sang. Yeah, it was really quite bizarre. But the guys in there were fantastic. But I hated the bar, and it was always one of those really soggy bars with soggy carpets and stinking of beer. And I thought the way the Fridays team operated was really sharp, and the Planet Hollywood guys, they were good. The bar on Wardour Street, there was Conran's Mezzo. They'd got some fantastic guys there. So I'd have probably had a go at that, but I think probably at the time I was thinking of getting off the bar and going the management route.
Yeah.
If I'd stayed in bar, I would have gone and done my own thing, probably the Stephen Lee thing. I'd have probably got in on that. That would have been a regret actually, that I could have possibly gone down that route and still had kept in that sort of field.
Do you like how the drinks have, I'd like to say, evolved? With the mojito, the porn-style martini. There's obviously new drinks that have always coming in. Also, some of the old classics are coming back, like espresso martini. I say Negroni, of course, has come back. And so, what's your opinion on that? Do you think it's obviously a good change? Is exciting? I mean, what do you think? What's your overall thing on that?
I think the food and drink industry is one of the most pleasurable things that we could possibly do. And I think when you find a drink that is your flavour today, that's fantastic. If I go back to 91, one of the things that we drank gallons of in those days was woo-woos. And we always reckoned that was the greatest drink ever, because it didn't matter how drunk you got, you could always pronounce it. Sea Breezes then came in, and we got sponsored by Absolute for Sea Breezes, and that was a massive thing for ages. But I think there's trends that come and go. Great drinks are, go back to that margarita and Bloody Mary. Great drinks are a combination and a perfect balance of flavour. Not too strong, not too sweet, not too sour. A really nice mix across the set. And however you achieve that in some of the newer creations, porn-style martini is an amazing drink. It's the balance and the skill of the bartender just to make that right and just get it spot on, because there's so many ways to mess it up, and that's what ruins it. So I love some of those new drinks. So I worked with you'll know Tim Bacon. So Tim Bacon and I worked together in London for a period of time, and I worked for him at Living Room and Prohibition. And one of the concepts that he put out after that was gauchos. And they did some amazing drinks with smoked brandy balloons that were putting different accents through the drinks and things like that. I mean, incredible stuff. Really good thinking. So I'm fascinated. Find me a cocktail bar and I'll stay all day.
Thanks. So what's the biggest wow or stroke compliment you've ever had?
I think winning the 92 was obviously the highlight, and family and friends and peers, really, the peers of the team on the bar at that point saying, you absolutely nailed it. That was yours all the way through. It was yours all the way through. Perfect service bar, perfect routine. Now, if you probably can't get the whole routine anymore, but the routine I did was not particularly complicated and over-flared. But what it was precise and accurate and absolutely on point. So whilst you might get extra points for creativity, I wanted to make sure I didn't drop anything, I didn't mess anything up, and it all worked. And I thought, if I can do that and I can make it really sharp, that might give me the edge.
Cool. I'm going to call out to people that are listening to this or watching this, because you said that you would like to have the 92 Dallas competition. And the 91 Mill Hill competition. So anyone that's listening, or just make a comment or get in touch, and be much appreciated.
I do remember one element in that 92 World in Dallas where I think I was doing the glass stack Liberty routine. And the judge that was sitting opposite me is a lady judge. Her name's escaped me for a second to come back. I did the routine that involved a Bacardi bottle. And as I threw the bottle, there was about an ounce too much booze in it, and it caught us square in the eye. And and her eye just flared immediately and went bright red, and she couldn't see half the routine after that.
So if someone wanted to get in touch with you, how would they get in touch with you?
You'll find me on LinkedIn. You'll find me on Facebook. I don't use Facebook. I'm not a big Facebook person, to be honest. It's not something I've ever really done a lot of, but I'm out there on LinkedIn, and yeah, you'll find me.
Well, thank you so much for doing this, agreeing to do this. And my name's Rob Stevens. This is Flair UK, Legends in Bartending, and we have Nick Mander. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob. Good to see you.